What is the Holy Odu all about? Most people know is the verses, the sacred verses of Ifa, which it is. So it's about 256 verses in combination, because it's a combination of what we call the major Odu plus the minor Odu. So we're going to get into the discrepancies in those two shortly. But together they combine to make up a total of 256 sacred verses that represent the core areas of our lives. So I'm going to use an example, two different examples for you, depending on where you come from. So for those of you all who come maybe from a Christian background, you can kind of think of it in the context of the Bible. For you all who come from a more spiritually based background, then you can maybe think of it in the context of like the tarot, right? Especially when we break it down to the major and the minor aspects. So when we're looking at the Odu, as I said before, those are the major aspects of life. Where did it come from? It actually came down from Olodumare. It was passed to Orunmila, Ifa, the oracle of the tradition. Okay, and so as I said before, it speaks on the different things that we will all experience in this life at some point. Now, obviously, you want to be experiencing everything all at once, but this is why we get Ifa readings. Okay, and this is also a great reason why you should, if you desire to, I don't want to say should, but if it's something that you desire, to read, to connect with the Odu on a regular basis, because it does give you inspiration and guidance, and it can, really change your mindset, especially if you pull it open and you're going through something at that time. But do keep in mind that these are guidelines for the reading. So it's not that you can just go and open up an Odu book or something like that, and that's the Odu that actually applies to you. Okay, don't get that part confused, and we're gonna separate that a little bit later on. So now, as far as the Odu goes, you do have those major Odu, as I said before. Those are the 16, right? Those are the major aspects of our life. So going back to my examples I said before. So when you look at it from a biblical context, you can kind of think about it as like a book of the Bible, if you will, right? If you are looking at it from the perspective of tarot, you can look at it as the major arcana. Matter of fact, that's where that concept kind of came from in relation to our thoughts and our knowledge that we had before as Africans. Definitely from the Odu and from the Yoruba tradition itself, but also from ancient African civilizations way back in Egypt and things like that. So those are the global aspects. So it could represent anything like death, life, your relationships, rebirth, pretty much whatever you're going through, right? And so the minor Odu are going to be the combination of verses. So it could be a combination of so many different things that are going on. It really just depends, again, as far as what happens in your reading. This is where you're going to get down to the core of what's going on, right? And so looking at it from a biblical perspective, I'm going to actually use the books of Psalms and Proverbs, because that will be a little bit more in alignment with the example that I want to give. So, the book of Psalms, these are songs, so to speak, right? They tell different narratives and talk about things that people went through. The book of Proverbs is the book of wise sayings. If you go into either of those books in the Bible, you can pull out a verse or what have you that applies to your particular situation in life. It may or may not apply at that particular time, but it will apply globally, right? And so you can kind of think about the minor Odu in that perspective when you get deep into the scriptures. Also, for those coming from the context of tarot, so this is really simple because, again, that was put in the context of what we do with the Odu. So when you have the minor arcana in the tarot deck, those are the ones that get down to the nitty gritty, to the specifics of what's going on in your life. Now, either of the Odu could actually come out. You can actually get a major Odu whenever you get an Ifa reading. So it can come out in so many different ways. it's important to note that again, you want to get a reading and you want to apply what comes from your particular reading, because even though you are going to get that Odu, certain things may apply to you that may not apply to another person who gets that same Odu in their reading.